So continuing analyzing the Holloway character, you understand what the role of that character would be in Prometheus. Holloway is gonna sabotage the mission, create the tension. He is actually gonna be, instead of the whole David bring the black goo back, it should have been Holloway, in my opinion, because you could have a scenario like this where Holloway's like Burke, like I said. They go into the first exploration of the caves. Holloway, of course, maybe on the radios is talking to Vickers, and now Vickers, her character, and as just a segue, I thought about it slightly, and I don't understand why Vickers is a character in Prometheus. You could take her character, and this is an example of bad writing, and one of my professors early in one of my English classes told me, good writing is simple, right? The less stuff you have in your writing, in your story, the better, because what's going to happen, you tell a better story with less in it, right? Space Odyssey 2001 is a good example of like that. This is just a sparse movie it's just so dense, but it's sparse at the same time. This movie, you have the Vickers character, and I kept thinking like, why is Vickers a character in this movie? You could take her out of the movie, have Weyland. I know Weyland is hiding away in his ship, whatever. Take Vickers out of the movie. Have David be sort of the liaison with Weyland, who's like maybe in hypersleep, hidden away. And you don't need to have Vickers in the movie at all. Like, you could just take her out. Charlize Theron, just take her out of the movie and you still have a good movie. You might actually have a better movie because now you don't have a silly sex scene with Vickers and the captain, and you don't have the Vickers character, which is in herself. She's like a Holloway, where she's set up initially as this corporate businesswoman type, and then she's somewhere in the middle of the movie. You don't really see much of her in the movie, but when she does reappear, when she reappears in the scene she does, she's doing something different than what she's set up as. And I never understood. Like, she's having sex with the captain. She's sort of questioning the mission. She's telling Sean Holloway, when you get down there, don't touch nothing, don't talk to nothing. And it's just sort of like, what's going on? Like, with that character, I would just take her out altogether in my version of Prometheus, if I was to redo the movie. Just take her out. She's not necessary. I know Charlize Theron is eye candy, and she's good for whatever value she offers for any movie. I mean, she's a good actress as well. Very good. Brilliant actress. I love Charlize. But she's not needed in this movie. Vickers is not needed in this movie. It's just an extra character that confuses things. And Holloway could have been Vickers and Holloway with that one character. So what would happen, going back to what I was saying, is that you would have Holloway and Shaw in the first exploration with other people that go out with them. Some point Holloway discovers when they open the door, oh my god, the alien head, the space jockey head, they realize the atmosphere is now disintegrating the head, it's dissolving, it's decaying or whatever. We have to get it back, we have to reserve it, get it back to the ship right away. Holloway now says, oh, well, I don't want her to take the head back, so I'm going to act like I'm injured and go back with them. So Holloway and Shaw now leaves to go back to the ship with maybe the doctor or the other scientists or whatever, while the rest of the team stay in the cave. Holloway and Shaw go back to the ship, right? The storm is, after the fact, the storm comes in and traps David with Fifield and Milburn back in the caves with the other people that get killed off or whatever, right? That's actually going to lead into my point 3 with the Fifield-Milburn conundrum. So Holloway and Shaw go back to the ship, and Holloway wants to see what this, they dissect the head and they see the black goo, and Holloway's like, I want to see what this black goo does, because I'm working secretly for Weyland. He's going to poison Shaw. In doing that, he ends up poisoning himself and poisoning Shaw. Now, the black goo now, the whole David and Holloway scene that we see in Prometheus on the pool table when David poisons Holloway, is just only in that movie to show the audience what the black goo does and to set up later on, like, oh my god, this black goo is toxic, it's going to do crazy, crazy stuff. Now, just take that stupid scene out, because there's no tension in that scene, there's no action, there's nothing in that scene that says brilliant movie with the David Holloway conversation. I know that scene's been talked about a little bit by other people talking about Prometheus. I'm not going to go into that scene, it's silly. Where I think David is asking him about his maker, and Holloway says, we made you because we could. And that's him being a little child. And like I said, it's echoed from early on with his character that I didn't like. Holloway would poison Shaw with the black goo. The black goo makes Shaw pregnant with the squid, and it somehow gets in Holloway, and he gets infected with the black goo, and turns him into a zombie. Now, zombie Holloway is now going around the ship, killing people, killing the minor characters off one by one, right? Which is what the Fifield character, after he gets transformed, does. But when Fifield comes back to the ship and he gets transformed into a zombie, it's kind of confusing because you're like, what the hell? But have Holloway be a zombie. Have Holloway, he's going to turn anyway in the Prometheus that we see. But in my version of Prometheus, have him turn into a zombie for a purpose. Have him be a zombie with a purpose. Now, he turns into a zombie. Maybe he feels guilty, whatever, and he goes on a killing spree or whatever, right? Shaw gets pregnant with the squid. Now, you can have Vickers, if you want to keep Vickers in the movie. Vickers and Shaw now are in conflict because Vickers now realizes Shaw has a baby alien in her. Vickers wants to preserve Shaw. Shaw wants to get it out of her, right? And they maybe have a little tension there. You have tension there. Shaw, Vickers, alien baby. Perfect. That could be tension there. Holloway now is a zombie. He's going around killing people. And the captain, now Captain Janik, or I think that's his name, the Idris Elba character, now is going to go after Holloway. And they're like, there's tension there, right? There's tension, with the alien baby, Vickers, Shaw, tension with Captain Janik, the rest of the crew, and Holloway, who's a zombie, right? All in the ship, right? Contained in one tight, claustrophobic space, which is sort of reminiscent of another movie we all saw, Alien, right? Now, back at the caves, you could have David now, who's his own agenda, because he's programmed by his he's a Weyland android now, in the caves with I think Fifield, Milburn, and I think there was a few other characters there. Now, David would be in a cave with them. The storm has everyone cut off, and the storm is a real storm now where you can't communicate back with the ship. I'm going to talk about that in my next point. And David now is going to realize where he is, and maybe he's going to, whatever happens with David and Fifield, Milburn, you could just there's so many possibilities with that. You can do so many things with that. You can have David poison Fifield, Milburn. Maybe David sets them up. They fall asleep. David doesn't sleep. He's awake and they're sleeping, and he puts like alien goo on them or something. You see what? And there's tension there. So now at this point in the movie, the middle point of the movie, because of what I've done with the Holloway character, my treatment of Holloway being a Burke instead of a love interest for Shaw. When you make Holloway a Burke character like from Aliens, you create like so many different opportunities for a better movie. You have the tension between Shaw and Vickers for the alien baby, the tension between Captain Janik and Holloway, who's now a zombie alien, whatever. And now you have tension back at the caves because David is stuck in a cave with Fifield and Milburn. 3 points of tension all happening at one point at the same time in the movie. A better movie. You have your alien horror, you have your science, kind of hard sci-fi going on. You have so many different things happening. Instead of what we have now, what we see in Prometheus at this point is David and Holloway sulking at the pool table, which is kind of boring. You see Holloway and Shaw having sex, talking about, I can't have a baby, which is, yeah. You see David trying to, I guess, put Shaw in cryo, and she escapes and cuts it out of her, and it's sort of, yeah, And then you have Fifield and Milburn getting lost, which leads me to point number 3 that I'm going to talk about. And actually, I'm going to save that for the next, I'll start that now. Fifield and Milburn getting lost. I've wrapped my brains around this so many times. I first saw the movie, initially, the first time I saw it in IMAX 3D, that stood out as something that bothered me. I'm like, why do they get lost? Because at the point they get lost, they've just gotten to the caves, they started looking around. The point where David opens the room, you could literally look back. I mean, go back and watch the movie. You could see the sunlight is coming into the tunnel. I think this is after the point they run from the holograms or whatever. I'm not sure how this is set up. But you can see as David's opening the wall, sunlight is coming in from somewhere. You know they're not deep into the cave systems, right? Fifield and Milburn, they already mapped the thing, the mapping probes, whatever, right? My point is, it's impossible for them to get lost, right? They barely went into the caves. The caves isn't shown to us at any point as some elaborate system of caves, or it doesn't seem like it goes deep into the ground. It doesn't seem, it doesn't seem elaborate enough for them to get lost in it. Fifield maps the caves. I know people are saying, oh, he just started mapping the cave. Oh, he's not the mapping person. Oh, he doesn't have a map in his brain. I know people have said they smoked weed in their helmets, which in itself is very silly. I think it's stupid. But they smoked weed in their helmet. It is shown, I think, Fifield smoking weed or marijuana in his helmet. And the reason for them getting lost is attributed to that. And the reason they start petting aliens, snakes, is attributed to them smoking weed. But in the previous scene, they're running away from a fossilized alien that's been dead and laying there for thousands of years because they're scared of that, but yet they're not scared to pet a live alien snake. That wasn't there before when they first got there. So it's one thing to see an element when you walk into a room, but to walk into a room and then the sun sets or the lights go out and something comes at you, you're not going to want to pet it because you've been there, you didn't see this, but now it's dark and it's coming at you, you're going to pet it. That made no sense to me. So it's impossible for them to get lost. I'm not even going to go into why they get lost or why I think they got lost based on the story. But from a writer's perspective, I'm analyzing this movie again, like I said, from a writer's perspective, right? The reason Lindelof makes them get lost is because at this point we're about a third into the movie. Nothing has happened. We haven't seen an alien. We saw, I think, Shaw brings back the alien head. There's nothing in the movie that really... I mean, visually the movie's beautiful at this point, but there's no real horror element in the movie. There's no real guts. There's no real grit in the movie. So Lindelof at this point would be like, oh wow, the movie's almost at the halfway point. We need an alien. We need something in the movie. So the easiest way is to make two characters get lost and left behind. And that's one way you could do it, right? But that's why they get lost. That's the only reason I could think of them getting lost, because Lindelof wants to create a scene of tension using the alien snakes, which is silly. For me, it was no tension. I know some people were like, oh my god, it was so scary. I was scared. There was so much tension. It was no tension in that scene because you kind of know what's going to happen when Milburn is like, oh, you're so cute. Oh, look at the snake. Oh, it's hissing at me. You know what's going to happen. Like, it's not like you don't know what's going to happen and then, oh, it happens. Oh my god, that just happened. You know it's going to happen. So that to me is, honestly, my first viewing, I was like, why would they put that in this movie? This is not like a B movie in the 1950s. It's not like Attack of the Killer Slugs kind of, So, my handle of that scene would have been what I just said in my first point with the Holloway character, where you would have Fifield and Milburn stuck in the cave system with David, right? They're not lost. They're just left behind because the storm comes in, and the storm comes in really fast, and they don't have time to go back to the ship. And they have to stay there overnight with David the android. So we don't know what David's going to do, right? Now we have tension with the David character because this entire movie, people love David. They love Michael Fassbender, what he's doing with the David character as an actor. But I never got any point in the movie where there's tension with the David character the way there was tension with, I think, the Bishop android or the first android in the first Alien movie. There was tension there between Ripley, a Ripley character. I can't remember the android's name in the first Alien. Bad. But there was more tension between that character, between that android and Ripley than David is here. David is sort of, he knows what's going on, but he's not telling the audience. He's just walking back and forth in this movie, but he's not really doing, there's no tension. But to leave David in the cave at Fifield and Milburn, sun sets, it's dark, there's a storm that cuts them off from the rest of the world, from Prometheus. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. David could poison them, he could go back to the ship the next morning and say, oh, well, we got attacked, they died, I didn't die. He could lie, and then at that point we could see the true intention of David, or we don't know what happened, but the next day the audience just sees David exiting the caves and walking back or driving back to the ship. We don't know what happened. That could have been left a mystery, and we're like, oh my god, what happened to Fifield and Milburn? And that could have been maybe saved for part 2 of the second movie, because we don't know David, we don't know what he did. But we would have to believe what he says, and that would actually add dimension to the David character, because we don't know who he is and something happened and we don't trust them, maybe. And then Weyland now being in the movie makes sense, because David would go back the next morning after killing Fifield or infecting them with the alien, and maybe he preserves their body, or he has aliens hidden in them, and he goes back to Weyland and he says, and we realize, oh my God, Weyland's on the ship and David's working with Weyland. Oh wow! And that would create the tension with Weyland being hidden on the ship. Often when Weyland wakes up in the movie that we see, we don't care. We're like, sure, just cut the alien out of her, and we're into that scene so much. And she's running through the hallway and she walks upon Weyland waking up, and we're like, okay, Weyland's on the ship. We don't care. But in this version where David comes back from the cave, in my version, we would care, because David now is coming back with information. We don't know what information David has, but by Weyland being on the ship, now we have a conduit of extracting, of the audience finding out what happened in the cave. So maybe David would tell Weyland what happened, or Weyland would know because of a psychological link in hypersleep. And now we have tension in the movie. Right? And that's all I have to say for that. That's my second point. Fifield and Milburn should not have gotten lost. It was just a weak way of creating tension at that point in the movie, and it should not have been in this movie. It doesn't belong in Prometheus. It belongs in maybe Men in Black 3, or I don't know, like a really bad science fiction movie, but it does not belong in Prometheus. And that's all I have to say about that second point. My next point, I'm going to come back and talk about the last scene with the Looney Tunes space jockey chase scene. And let me just check to make sure I said everything about Fifield and Milburn getting lost. And like I said, it's impossible to get them lost. Again, like, there's a 3D map on the ship. Milburn has a GPS watch on his hands. When the captain rages them, well, first of all, they get back to the ship in the storm. Captain Janek realizes Fifield and Milburn isn't with them. In a previous scene, I think Captain Janek says, oh, hurry back to the ship because I can't communicate with anyone in the cave because the storm is going to cut communications off. But yet, the minute they get back to the ship, realize Fifield and Milburn aren't with them. The captain is able to radio them to find out where they are. And then we realize they've been left behind and been lost in a cave. So apparently communication was available during the storm. Another weird point in that movie. The whole Fifield and Milburn getting lost scene is sort of reminiscent and parallel to some of what we've seen in the Alien vs. Predator movie. A lot of that is reminiscent to the Alien vs. Predator movie, I think. And to some extent, Alien Resurrection. And that's it for